Hey guys, how you all doing? Hope everything is good and ting and ting and ting. Hey, we continuing the series on the troubles in Northern Ireland, and this one is called "Living Through the Troubles in Northern Ireland." So we're gonna get like a little inside look at how it was for the people living through all the turmoil and troubles that are going on in Ireland at the time. So let's go ahead and YouTube and simmer and see what it was like for them.
This amateur footage was captured in the aftermath of one of the most shocking events of the Troubles. On the 8th of November 1987, the Provisional IRA detonated a bomb at a Remembrance Sunday ceremony in the town of Enniskillen. The devastating scenes from the attack led to widespread condemnation and a backlash towards the IRA and Sinn Féin. For nearly 20 years, the citizens of Northern Ireland had lived through the Troubles. Many had been born into the conflict and never known anything else. Yet by the early 1990s, it appeared that peace might finally be within reach. So what was it like to live through this conflict? And how did the two sides finally come together to negotiate a solution? Since the early days of the Troubles, barriers had been erected to divide the Republican and Loyalist communities.
First barriers went up in Belfast on September the 10th, 1969, and were put up by the British Army's Royal Engineers. At this stage, they were wooden pickets with rows of barbed wire, and they were there to separate the communities of the Falls Road and the Shankill. However, as the Troubles progressed, rather than reducing the number of barriers, they increased, particularly in Belfast, where the area between the Shankill and the Falls Road increased to huge steel walls that are here to this day. The peace walls were probably largely welcomed by people at the time, owing to the fact of security and fear of the other community. And even today, even though the walls have started to come down in stages, in many communities, people don't yet feel confident enough for these barriers to be removed.
In 1963 to 65...
Now here's the thing, he said that people still aren't comfortable to remove the barriers to this day. Now that's going to change with generations. The people who didn't live through it and don't really understand fully what it is. And that's the good thing about forgetting what you were fighting about to begin with. You know what I mean? Sometimes the fighting go on for so long, you forget what the real cause of the fighting is, and you're just fighting for revenge and, honor. But, on the flip side, people would just, well, that was back then. I don't really have nothing to do with that. I don't understand what's going on. And people just naturally start getting along, start marrying each other and stuff like that. And of course, just take one person to say one thing and we'll play out. It's just gone crazy again. But, that's such is mankind, huh?
I was going out with my future wife. I lived in the west of Belfast, and she lived on the extreme east of Belfast. Now, I used to virtually every night walk that 7 miles. So I would walk through the Newton Ards Road, which is a highly Protestant area, the Markets area, and the Short Stand and the Markets area are both Catholic area. 7 miles right through the centre of the city. I walked that every night with no fear whatsoever and no consequences. Now, in the 1980s, had I done that, I wouldn't have lived for more than a week.
Wow.
Because there were so many murders in that Short Strand, Markets, Newton Ards Road area, that one or the other groups would have picked me up.
But it wasn't just walls that segregated the communities. Growing up in Northern Ireland often meant interacting almost exclusively with people from the same background and faith. By the late 1990s, around 92% of Northern Ireland's public homes were segregated by religion. Marriages between Protestants and Catholics were highly unusual. In 1970, over 95% of children in Northern Ireland attended single-faith schools. But from early on in the Troubles, there were movements campaigning for integration and peace. The community of peace people had led marches throughout the 1970s, but the issue of segregation proved difficult to change. Even today, the majority of schools are still segregated by faith. In the late 1980s, Northern Ireland was still being governed by direct rule from Westminster. The Northern Irish Assembly had been closed in 1986, and no satisfactory solution could be agreed to reinstate a devolved government.
You see that the fact that they were separated by faith, the schools never had that stuff. I mean, we had Catholic schools, but I went to a Catholic school, uh, primary school, and I went to a Methodist secondary school. The point was to get the education, not so much so, to instill the religious beliefs in in us. That's kind of cool, actually. Maybe that's why I'm so free thinking, It wasn't like, oh, you have to go to a Catholic school. You better be going to the presentation brothers college, you know what I mean? Now, granted, my brother went there. He went straight from there to one Catholic school to the next, all boys, nonetheless. I went from a Catholic school to a Methodist co-ed type, situation. So, and the Methodists never really pushed their beliefs down on us neither. We just went there and got an education.
Anglo-Irish agreement had sparked a series of assaults from loyalists against Catholic houses and RUC offices, and IRA bombings had also increased in reaction to this. Bomb scares had become a regular occurrence for Northern Irish citizens.
Behind me is a wheelbarrow. It's a bomb disposal robot used by the British Army from the early 1970s to defuse certain types of devices. Sadly for the people of Northern Ireland, bomb scares were a common occurrence. Often any object lying around or anything looked remotely suspicious would have to be reported. Many of the devices are aimed at the business district of cities and towns, shops, and also at military targets as well. So the threat was very real for the civilian population, as invariably they were the ones who would be caught up in any blasts.
If you identify a bomb or find a suspicious package, what do you do? Even at a moment like this, try to be observant. If you do find a bomb of any kind, follow this procedure.
Other little things were, it was commonplace just to walk out of your house in the morning and have an armed British soldier at your gatepost. I remember not questioning that, and that was every day. Going shopping, opening your handbag up, going through checkpoints, which just popped up anywhere. Bomb scares were commonplace, and again, none of that. It was just normal. It was my normal.
Man, can you imagine living like that? Can you imagine that? The fear. You know what I mean? Can one get kind of used to that kind of thing? You know what I mean? Hey, like she said, it's a normal everyday thing. But you're just getting up to go to work, not expecting somebody to just drop a bomb somewhere. And you just sit a bag there, ba-boom. And it's sad that that stuff, people are still using those tactics all over the world, man. Why would you want to blow up innocent people? Granted, they think differently than you do, but poor people or just ordinary citizens and ordinary citizens, they're going through the same struggle on either side, man. But yet to cripple and to maim other people just because they're different than you. And, it's not so much a massive physical difference, it's just an ideological and religious difference. It's crazy.
It's only after I've left and all this has stopped that I think, how do people live like that?
The 1980s had seen an increase in violence and a series of tit-for-tat bombings. Both sides were smuggling weapons into Northern Ireland to support their armed campaigns. The IRA had been importing arms from the US, Libya, and elsewhere since the early 1970s, and in the mid-1980s, the loyalist paramilitary groups collaborated to procure arms from abroad. In late 1987, a large shipment of arms was smuggled into Belfast from Lebanon, intended for the UDA, the UVF, and the Ulster Resistance.
No, I know they were fighting and stuff, and some people might think that I shouldn't think of it like that, but I wonder who was... Somebody was making money off of this. Somebody had to be making money off of it. It just wasn't... I say a lot of people probably because of the ideology, but there's somebody like egging this on or not egging it on, but not doing really something really drastic to stop it because they're making a profit off of it. And it's sad that the outside people are, selling arms to people. It's kind of like in South America during the 80s. when people were just selling arms to those rebels and stuff like that, and they were just killing each other, man. Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch a video about certain countries in South America during the 1980s. That was a crazy time, as I remember that. And another thing I wanted to say too here is the plight of the Irish people in the Troubles wasn't lost on us in the Caribbean because they were mentioned in our calypso songs. You know what I mean? They were mentioned in some reggae songs, you know. Yeah, we kind of heard about what's going on there as a reference of them fighting to free themselves and stuff like that. People would use that in their songs or even in some poetry. I'm gonna have to look up and see if I could find some, but you know. So we were quite aware of what was going on there. The details we weren't sure, but we knew people were fighting for some kind of cause there.
But the movement towards politics was also developing. The Remembrance Sunday bombing in November 1987 marked a turning point in the Troubles. The IRA and Sinn Féin were straddled between a political agenda and acts of terrorism, and their senior members were aware of how much attacks like this could damage their cause. Gerry Adams, the leader of Sinn Féin, said that the Enniskillen bombing was a mistake that they couldn't afford to repeat. Just 2 months later, Gerry Adams met in secret with John Hume, leader of the Social Democrat and Labour Party.
The talks between Gerry Adams and John Hume are highly significant. They began speaking in secret in early 1988. Initially, the talks come to nothing, but Adams and Hume build up a trust, and over the next few years continue to meet in secret. But it's not only them. The British government and the Irish government are also involved in this. This may be secret from the population, but it's well known within the Irish and British governments. And it's not until April 1993, when purely by accident Gerry Adams is seen going into John Hume's house, that the public realises that something is going on.
Both sides were keen for peace and open to the idea of a wider pan-Irish alliance, yet the armed struggle continued.
Gerry Adams says that the British government really understands the force of argument, but it understands the argument of force. And also the armed struggle isn't purely about defence, it sets a political agenda.
In 1988, 3 events took place in succession that would see the violence descending out of control and change the course of the conflict.
In March, 3 members of an IRA active service unit were shot by the SAS in Gibraltar, where they were seen or thought to have been seen to be planting a bomb. However, as it turned out, they were unarmed and there was no bomb, although the bomb-making material was found in a car in Spain several days later. At the funerals of these 3 IRA volunteers at Milltown Cemetery in West Belfast, another event happened. Michael Stone, a loyalist gunman, attacked the funeral with grenades and a handgun. 3 people were killed in this incident. It was also caught on TV, so these images went round the world. A week later at the funeral of one of the people shot, an IRA man who was actually killed by Michael Stone. For reasons that are still uncertain, 2 British Army corporals drove into the funeral cortege in the Andersonstown Road in West Belfast. The mourners at the funeral, believing it another Michael Stone attack, attacked the car. One of them came out of the car and fired a pistol in the air. The 2 men were dragged out, beaten, and taken to a piece of waste ground and shot dead.
Whoa.
Again, this was captured by the world's press. At this point, the violence seems to be spiralling out of control, and with this, talks between the British government, the Irish government, Sinn Féin and SDA seem to be more important than ever.
In the early 1990s, a series of bombs were detonated, targeting British Army bases. There were more bombings in London, in Belfast, and across Northern Ireland. In 1993, the Warrington bomb attack in Cheshire killed 2 children and wounded 56. All sides recognised that this level of violence was not sustainable, and public weariness of the conflict helped push forward the peace talks.
As we move into 1994, there are signs of a ceasefire emerging. Although the violence continues, the IRA have intimated that they are keen to look at terms of talks. A document's introduced that goes by the initialisation of TUAS, which Republicans claim stands for Totally Unarmed Struggle, but in reality really stands for Tactical Use of Armed Struggle, because armed struggle has not gone away, but the need for political talks continues on.
In August 1994, a deal was finally struck. The Provisional IRA announced a cessation of all military operations. Unionists and the British government remained sceptical at the announcement, but Gerry Adams pronounced it a victory, saying the struggle was into a new phase. But the ceasefire was conditional on political progress. In October 1994, the Combined Loyalist Military Command announced its own ceasefire. Likewise, their statement asserted that the permanence of the ceasefire was dependent on the continued cessation of Republican violence. The Irish Prime Minister Albert Reynolds stated this decision effectively signifies the end of 25 years of violence and the closure of a tragic chapter in our history. In 1995, the death toll dropped to a record low since the Troubles began in 1969, with 9 people killed. The all-party peace talks resumed, and just when a resolution felt to be close, a stumbling block was hit.
John Major, who became Prime Minister in 1990, takes steps that previous British Prime Ministers have not, which is to prioritise Northern Ireland. This is actually a bit of a risk for him because he has a very slim majority in Parliament and relies on Ulster Unionist Party votes. However, the major sticking point for the British government was something called the pre-decommissioning of IRA arms. They insisted Sinn Féin could only take part in the talks if the IRA agreed to decommission their weaponry. This, of course, was something the IRA would never do. Armed struggle was, in a sense, their main trump card.
Then, on the 9th of February 1996, 17 months after the start of the ceasefire, a lorry bomb was detonated on the Isle of Dogs. 2 people were killed, dozens were injured, and millions of pounds worth of damage was done. The IRA claimed responsibility, stating their anger at the direction of the peace talks, with Sinn Féin being sidelined from negotiations. Civilians were once again paying the price for the political stalemate. Paramilitary groups and the IRA refused to give up their arms, and over the next few years, hundreds more would suffer. The public were desperate for an end to the violence, but the segregation that marked the cities of Northern Ireland had deep roots. How would peace in Northern Ireland finally be reached?
Wow, every time they come this close, stuff start going off again. It's crazy what we do. I'm going to leave a link to this video in the description, and you all could go check it out. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching this with me, and learning something. Let me rephrase it. I hope you guys enjoyed learning something about this. The more we know about certain things, the easier it's going to come to be a negotiator. Because we just watched that video about Scotland. Everybody was fighting over the England Scottish border, and the people came together. Let's have a game, and you'll have it this year, and I'll have it this year for win. But we could do this. You understand what I'm saying? Anyway, man, if you like it, drop a like in there for me and thing, you know what I mean? And comment down below. Tell me what you all think about this, and if there's anything I could do better, you know what I mean? So you all could sit here and learn something. Let me know in the comment section, all right? You all take care of each other. Cool runnings.